Okay, Ginger, thanks for coming on the podcast here and having a little bit of a chat. Do you mind telling everybody who you are and what is it that you do?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ginger. I do a bunch of nothing and a bunch of everything kind of at the same time. I'm kind of what they call a digital nomad. Um, so I'm currently an online graduate student. I'm working on my MBA in finance, and I travel the country doing house sitting and pet sitting. This is going on my 8th month of doing this now, so technically houseless. I just bounce around traveling and studying, and I had an online work from home job when I started all of this, so it kind of just allowed me to float wherever I felt like going. So it's been a pretty big
Yeah, when I first met you, I guess we were both in British Columbia.
Canada.
Canada, yeah. Yoho, I think it was provincial park or no national park.
Yep.
Dog Lake, Dog Lake.
Yes.
Super
That's
cool.
right, because you had a couple dogs with you.
Yeah, and I had a couple dogs with me out of all things. Like, what a strange coincidence. So, yeah, I was out by myself. Just I was kind of dog sitting my uncle's dog, and I had my little rat dog with me too in a little pouch. And yeah, I went for a hike, just kind of clear my mind, get some fresh air, as I do. And as you can probably tell for those that follow me on Instagram, went out to the big hike. Didn't really know exactly what Dog Lake was or that trail was like. I kind of just went in aimlessly. Got to the end of it. Nice little lake. Kind of expected more, but it was still really beautiful. Got some really good shots of it. And then I guess as the sun was setting, I heard a wolf howl across the lake and determined that was time to get the F out of there. And then that's when I guess I kind of ran into you on the trail.
Yeah.
And that's how we met. It was I thought it was a pretty cool experience. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed like the chat back, and we kind of arranged to do this at some point. And I'm glad that it's finally happening months and months later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was kind of crazy, a crazy coincidence for me too, because living in the United States, when I didn't realize when I crossed over into Canada that I still had cell service, but I didn't have data to be able to research like what are some good trails in the area. So I was kind of doing everything old school, like with the maps and all of that, just reading the signs, and I just sort of randomly ended up there because I was at a campsite right next to that trail.
Cool.
Yeah, and we just bumped into each other. That was funny.
Yeah.
It's always so nice too to connect with people when I'm traveling alone, because it can start to feel lonely, but conversations like that just remind me that I'm never really alone.
Yeah, I don't know. I got this weird relationship with loneliness. It's where like it does get quite, I guess, lonely, and I guess you can kind of get a bit of sorrow if you have too much of it. But it also gives you like solitude and peace of mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes when there's like too much noise from people and like stuff like that, I don't know, you kind of appreciate the loneliness. So it's this weird sort of like well, I guess like a tug of war with how you balance it and how you look at it. And I think as long as you frame your mind positively and always kind of take advantage of like the lonely, then I don't think it necessarily becomes a bad thing. But maybe it's a good thing in a way. Like the silver lining is that it motivates you to kind of like engage with other people like that you wouldn't normally engage with, and then you kind of make this cool connection, and you're like, dang, I'm really glad I talked to that person. They were insightful. They informed me about this thing I didn't know about. Now I'm going to go look and research into this. And
or more alike than different.
Yeah, it's like you just start networking in a way too. Like, oh, like, they're a really cool person. I'm glad I had this. Like, I don't know. And then you can start getting into like the spiritual stuff about it, where it's like the universe kind of like works in mysterious ways, and then it's like they put like, certain people in your path to like aid you in like little different ways, whether it's just like maybe it's doing a podcast, or it's just like, you know, some sort of thing to better your life, whatever that might be. And I can't really think of like the smaller little nuances it could be, but maybe they just recommend like a good place to go hike, and then you end up going to that place to go hike, and then you have like an even more like phenomenal experience, and it's just like this breadcrumb trail of experiences.
No,
like
totally. The way that it all unravels. I say this a lot. I feel like whenever we're living in alignment with what we feel like is best serving our highest selves, and when we're, you know, doing our work, doing our tasks throughout the day with integrity and intention, the way that things just unfold and unravel, it's almost like kind of a visualization that I've used is it feels like the universe is this giant hand and it's just cradling me, like holding me in its palm.
Yeah, I don't know. I have never. Let's see. What do I think of it as? It's either like complexity from. It's just so complex that like it appears as chaos, but it's actually like organized. But it's just at such a large scale that it just appears disorderly and sort of like, I don't know, unpredictable. But then at the same time, like things kind of fall in place sometimes. But then sometimes like things don't fall in place, and it like feels like the world, like the universe is against you. But yeah. I've had like bad things happen to me, but then I don't know if it was me or coincidence or luck, maybe a combination of all those things. But it kind of led to like something good down the road that was sort of like consequential of that bad thing happening. Whether it was like, you know, like a breakup, and then that breakup causes you to like, I don't know, do something else, go somewhere else, or work somewhere else, or and then you look back, you know, a year down the road, and you're like, I remember being pretty miserable this time last year because of this or that, but now because of this or that, I'm here. And it's weird.
Isn't that wild? Yeah. It's like everything that we have done and everything that has happened to us up until this point is to lead us to this exact moment right now.
Yeah, pain. And I guess pain and loss kind of acts as like a weird motivator as well in a way. So it's kind of like this weird like universal balance of like good and bad. It's like, yeah, I don't know. But going back to the digital nomadness, like I want to hear about your adventures. I want to hear about the coolest things you've seen. You know, I started following you on Instagram. I've seen glimpses of it. I saw skydiving. I saw, I don't know, you're going all over the place. I think I was talking to you yesterday. You said you're going to a beach. I'm covered in snow right now. And I was like, she's at a beach. Where is she?
I'm currently in San Carlos, California. This is actually my last house sit on I've done a big loop around the country. So I started in Texas back in April. My lease ended there. That's where I'm from. That's where my family lives. And once my lease ended, I sold everything that didn't fit in my car and just hit the road.
Love it.
I booked out a bunch of house sits through a couple different platforms, and this is probably something that I'm glad that I did it, but in a way it almost has prevented me from flowing a little bit more organically because I planned out all of these house sits like 8 months in advance. So in a way, it's provided me some comfort, like knowing, okay, this is where I'm going to be living next week. Since, you know, I don't have a house. I depend on my house sits or camping or friends that I'm staying with. But I went from Texas. I was up in Colorado for about 3 months. I went through Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons and all of that in Wyoming.
Just living your best life, eh?
Yeah. I stayed with some family up in Idaho, in North Idaho, which is when I made the trip to like the Banff area and we met. Yeah. So I got to stay on my family's farm in Idaho and learned like some farming skills, which was really neat. Got to explore some of Montana while I was there. spent a while in Washington, and now I'm slowly making my way back down south, traveling down the West Coast to get back to Texas for the holidays.
Yeah, stay down there. It's warm.
Yeah. I'm
cold up here
avoiding
now.
the snow
It's
at all
cold.
costs for now.
Yeah, it is snowy. It is quite snowy. It's finally hit us. Like November 1st, it came in like a freight train. It without
Oh my
remorse
goodness.
either. Came in hot, like came in cold and heavy.
Oof. And the darkness, too, it's slowly creeping in, and the days are getting shorter.
Yeah, good old daylight savings time, which
Yeah.
not all Canadian provinces participate in. But I think
That's what I heard.
yeah, but I think we should get rid of it. I don't know. I'm not a fan. I'm not really a fan of it. Everyone gets tired. They lose like an hour of sleep. There's like more car accidents. It happens around a time in Canada where the roads are in worse condition than in the summer.
Ooh.
I don't know. My other recommendation is to do it like 5 minutes every day for like a week or 2 weeks or something
Oh,
like that.
heck yeah.
And then just
Uh-huh.
like a slow integration. So when you're late for work, it's only like a couple minutes. It's not the end of the
Yeah, it's sort of like the leap year thing. It's like 365 and a quarter days every year to make up for. I don't know. That's what they say. Like
Yeah.
the one whole year is actually 365 and a quarter days,
Yeah.
but we add a whole extra day like every 4 years when if we would just
The
take like take a few extra hours.
Yeah, it would be weird if you had like, what would that hour be in the day? It would be like, I don't know, midnight and a quarter or something like that.
Yeah.
Quarter hour. It could be like a new haunting hour or something. That'd be cool.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, what was the most memorable place you visited in the past 8 months? Like,
Ooh, I think probably my little trip up to Banff. I think that will be one that I will never forget because that was literally the night before I went to Canada. My family lives up in North Idaho, so they're probably the last town before driving across the border. Like everything else is farmland north of them. And I didn't realize Banff was only like 3 or 4 hours away from where I had been living all summer.
it's crazy. It's like a
Yeah.
different world, like a different country. It's just like right there.
It was so close. So I kind of spontaneously planned the night before, like, I think I'll just go to Canada by myself tomorrow. Everyone was like working and they had some chores and stuff that they were doing and just stuff that I wasn't really being very helpful with. So I think I was there for 5 or 6 days. And it was, oh, this dog, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, go deal with it.
Hey, come here. Come inside.
Get them on the podcast.
Oh my goodness, doggo. Okay. Let's see. So I took myself to Canada for like a 5 or 6 day adventure. And like I said, I didn't have any data. I was doing everything like the old-fashioned way with maps and stuff, and it was so nice just completely disconnecting for that chunk of time and really feeling it's really empowering when I do stuff like that as a solo independent woman. It's like that reminder that I can literally do whatever I want, and the only thing that ever is stopping me is myself.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of moments like that of just like, what the hell am I doing right now? Look at where I am. Just these amazing views, standing over Lake Louise, and it's just magic. It's really neat, and it makes it even that much more special, I think, that I've gotten to create this for myself.
Yeah, like 100%. Like it's the coolest thing that a lot of people do is they go out and they find who they are, like what they're capable of, and they challenge themselves and they get out of their comfort zone. And when you do that, I feel like you grow. You become a better person, the best version of yourself, and you pick up like new pieces of you along the way.
Yeah, I don't think anything could have prepared me for that during the past year of my life. Just, I think going into this, I was thinking, this is going to be the biggest adventure of my life, probably, and it has. But also, all of the learning and little lessons that have been integrated into every little thing now that my lifestyle has completely shifted. There really is no way I could have prepared for all of that.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. I feel like when I travel and like it's sort of like the phone disconnects. There's no service for like X amount of miles.
Yeah.
It's you get the. I feel like you really get to know yourself better, like in a way, because you become self-reliant, you become self-prepared. You gotta like have your ducks lined up. You become more resourceful, and it's in a way. I've already said this, but like you become like a better version of yourself, and I don't know. And there's like certain places you visit that are kind of like very beautiful, whether it's like a certain mountain, waterfall, or lake, or anything like that, and it's awe-inspiring. It like triggers something in the brain to kind of motivate you to do more, to like stay fit, to keep healthy.
Definitely.
I started like exploring into like yoga and stuff like that, and sort of listening to some of these people that are like, I guess, gurus on it and stuff like that. Listen to like a few podcasts with them, and then there's like the whole spiritual aspect of it. And I'm not the most spiritual person in the world, but I'm very open to it, and I am definitely intrigued by like hearing about it. And some of these like yogis, one of their things is they think very significant natural formations or places, like rarities or oddities within the natural world, sort of have like this like natural energy to it, whether it's positive or negative or whatever it is, but it's like a source of like, I don't know, energy, power. I can't really remember exactly how they explained it, but yeah, so I don't know. I always felt like, I don't know what I believe, but it's like, if it's true, well then hopefully I'm getting the benefits of it, while I'm out there hiking and doing all that stuff, and sort of like open to it. And I don't know.
The natural world, I think, it's a pretty good reminder of, I think this is probably a perspective thing, but really it's all just a bunch of energy swirling around, and we're a bundle of cells, and that mountain in front of me is just a different bundle of elements and chemicals and things. And it makes me feel pretty small sometimes, standing in front of those gigantic mountains and like massive lakes and all of that. But I think a common theme that keeps surfacing for me is you are significant and you matter, even as small as I feel. Like looking up at the night sky and all of those stars like thousands and millions of miles away, this moment and this thing that I'm doing right now does matter. And the ripple effects that, maybe a lot of my journey is spent by myself, but the connections that I make and the conversations that I have and all of it, it matters, and it's significant, and call it energy, call it whatever. But yeah, I feel like it's easier to remember things like that, and it's easier to have these just really spiritually enlightened moments when you're doing these extravagant, out of the ordinary things. But all of that it's everywhere. It's in every moment. It's in every breath. It's just we forget about it, and then we remember when we're in nature. And hiking and all of that is such a good returning to that.
When you meet certain people or you go certain places, you may not remember exactly what they said to you, exactly what you did at those places, but what you do take away, or at least what I take away, or what I remember the most, is how that place made me feel, that experience or that person made me feel. And usually how I regard somebody or think of somebody is how they made me feel. Did they make me feel welcome? Did they make me not feel welcome? Did they make me feel dumb? Did they make me feel smart? You know, and then that sort of forms my opinion on people and places as well, right? If you have a positive experience somewhere and you're just kind of like awestruck at something, you're gonna be like, you're gonna remember that.
Totally.
That's all you're really going to remember, and maybe that's what's important. It's sort of like that emotional connection to like the lived experience. But it's going back to sort of like that science stuff where you know, everything's sort of just made up of like particles and basic elements and stuff like that. It's sort of interesting because at some point, you know, if you want to follow the, I guess, traditional scientific hypothesis, it's like, you know, everything starts off as like simple, you know, elements, and then over time they sort of combine and form and gain complexity, and then at some point that complexity will turn into life. And then that like, and then they'll become like a simple organism. And it's sort of weird, like whatever that little barrier between, like, I guess it's like, I guess you could call it like a spark. Whatever sparks those elements into shifting into that direction of complexity, like how narrow is that veil between a rock in a mountain and, you know, like an amoeba or like a bacteria or like, you know, a plant or like a person. And it's like, we're kind of all sort of, we're all, what's the cheesy saying? We're all made of stardust. Like that's basically what it like. So it's kind of like, oftentimes we look at ourselves as being separate from the universe because we're kind of like observing it as with like our own consciousness, but we're actually, in a way, the universe observing itself from within itself. Which is like, I don't know, it's always kind of interesting to think like I'm not separate from it, I'm a part of it. But
definitely.
But at the same time, like the human experience, it sort of feels like we are separate from it. But maybe that's just, I don't know.
I think that's a thing that, you know, traveling alone and doing a lot of stuff independently, loneliness, like we were talking about, and this idea of separation, it comes up a lot for me. But in a way, it's almost like being alone and feeling separate and taking that and using it to learn more about yourself. It's through that self-study, and this is another little thing, a limb of yoga. It's called svadhyaya, self-study. Through self-study, we remember all of that, wait a minute, we're not separate at all. We're not alone at all. Maybe sometimes it feels like it, but you know, this is a feeling. It will pass. It is not truth. And also, too, you kind of grazed by something that I wanted to circle back around to about how places and people and like connections that you make, remembering how they make you feel, and that kind of being what sticks with you. When we were in, I don't remember what the park was that we met at. You said it wasn't at Banff.
I thought it was Yoho. But maybe,
I think it might have been Kootenai.
Okay, maybe it was Kootenai. That's probably, I can Google it real quick.
Okay, so when we were in Kootenai, I remember there was nobody out on that trail, and I also heard that wolf, and it was kind of getting dark, and you were the only other human that I remember passing, and that can be super scary as a solo female traveler, like walking around in the forest by myself. And I think I had mentioned this to you, like when we first crossed paths, I was like, my awareness was really heightened. You know, I just was being prepared for anything that could have happened. And then we started chatting, and it was just like, I remember that same feeling like you mentioned, feeling welcomed. I felt really safe. And that was such a relief, especially like, I mean, just being alone in like this random country in the forest all alone. And apparently there's wolves running around. And now, you know, I've met a stranger, but
who could be
it was a really great, seriously, you could have been anything.
Yeah.
But it was a really good interaction. That is pretty
scary. Like, like oftentimes people are always kind of nervous about bears, wolves, you know, whatever wildlife, but
Human predators.
The real threat, I think, is people.
Yeah.
And then you look at the stats of like the missing 411, and you see like all these hikers, you know, they went out alone, this and that. And like realistically, anything could have really gotten them, an accident, a heart attack, and then, you know, some animal comes along, takes the body, they go missing, or, you know, maybe it is an animal attack. But, you know, if you were a murderer, what would you do? If you know what I mean? You would go out onto a random trail where there's no like cell phone
Yeah,
service.
probably look for someone like me walking around by myself without cell service.
Exactly. So I always, when people, because I have a lot of friends that are kind of like city people and they don't really get out too much, but they're always like, oh, aren't you scared of bears? Aren't you scared of this? I'm like, no, it's the people I'm scared of.
Yeah.
You never know who.
Well, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for not murdering me.
Well, I'm glad you initially believed that I was a murderer, and it makes me. I think I should reflect on my physical appearance and how I carry myself better. But I'm glad
you were traveling with all these dogs, and like you had a big camera bag. It was not scary at all. I just have to be extra careful.
Yeah, it's like I talked to some of my other like girlfriends out there, and they're just kind of like, yeah, like I carry pepper spray, not really for the bears.
Exactly. Yeah, they say a lot of the, and Canada is interesting about, I guess bear spray isn't as much of a thing there, and the way that y'all tend to the environment, and it sounds like the relationship that Canadians have with the outside world is a lot different than a lot of the national parks and spaces that I've been to in the US. But bear spray is like, everyone's like, oh, you're going to Yellowstone, you better get some bear spray. And you know, half of the places when I went to Yellowstone, I was only there for a couple hours, and I didn't step foot off of a paved surface. And
really? Yeah, that's what
it's like. I don't know if it's just this marketing thing that
it's
they're trying to
for like outdoor tourism, so you make it more available.
But with the bear spray, I don't know if it's just, you know, to make more money for the parks, but there was no way that bear spray would have been even necessary at all. And like these tourists coming in with, you know, flip-flops on or buying bear spray, like they're going to encounter stuff like that.
There's definitely a bit of that. They're making some money off people's like phobias or fears, and they're just kind of like, well, if we can make a buck, might as well, like, you know. But when it's heavily curated and those areas are sort of like that, and there's a lot of people, plus then you have conservation efforts of them kind of like shooing away bears and stuff like that. Unless you're off alone by yourself in the backwoods somewhere, your chances of encountering a bear that's going to like prey on you is very slim. If you're dealing with like a bear that's thriving off humans and their refuse and garbage, it's going to be way more like interested in your garbage than you, because it's a lot less work for it. And it's bears kind of naturally do scavenge, and I think most of their diet isn't even really meat anyway. It's like grasses and berries and you know, whatever they kind of mow on. In the springtime they love dandelions, so they're just mowing dandelions nonstop, just like
omnivores.
Yeah, so every now and then they do make a pretty big kill, but even then they're kind of like, they go after like fawns and stuff, like stuff that's like weaker.
Humans are scarier. I've been crossing my fingers hoping that I would come across a bear during my travels, and I have yet to see one. So
the best times is like dusk and dawn, like those little twilight hours. And it's also seasonal depending on where it is. But yeah, I don't know, I've seen a few. I'm pretty happy. I got some videos of them up on my Instagram there.
I know, I've seen those. It's awesome.
I love that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's funny. I always make the joke like, oh yeah, when you deploy the bear spray on a bear, if you're close enough, you're basically just a spicy meatball at that point. like the usefulness of like the bear spray is gauged by distance, and like it's just kind of like, well, if you're that close to a bear, it's almost already over.
Done for.
But yeah, I don't know. the missing 411, like those cases in the States and stuff like that. It's off. That pops into my mind a lot, and I'm always, but like, I don't know. I like.
I
to
think I've gotten a lot more. I think I've gotten a lot more hesitant to do and I don't know if this is just because the change of the weather and it's getting a little bit more overcast. It's getting a little chilly, and this Texan gal, when it gets, a slight breeze blows through, I'm like, I am staying indoors. But I haven't been going on as many just wild out there hikes and adventures like when we met when I was on that trip. And I don't know if it's because of some of that just getting a little bit hesitant of being afraid or the seasons or what is going on.
Maybe you got your fill, and then, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and then once you're away from it for a little bit, you're going to be like,
I'll be back to it. Probably.
Yeah. Maybe it's the weather and seasons. There's like this little, I forget what it's from, but I think it's from a book or something, or some sort of ancient tablet, but it's like, as above, so below, where it's kind of like, and what usually most people take away from that is that as, the celestial like circumstances change and like the Earth's rotation around the sun, so does sort of like down below on Earth, the seasons change, and then,
oh, absolutely. And you think about how in the fall and in the winter, the wind is a little bit colder, things are kind of blowing around a lot faster, the leaves are withering away and falling off the trees, and energetically it's like the days are getting shorter too, and like less we sun, mentioned, less sun. We're kind of drawing inwards, and I almost feel like I'm closing off a bit to doing crazy adventurous things right now, and I think it's some of that same idea of just drawing inwards and slowing down and trying to balance all of that swirling wind, and it kind of does the same thing sometimes to my thoughts, just like anxious, thinking like, what's coming next? What am I about to do? What am I eating for lunch? Like, what's happening next week? Where am I going next? And I find that same thing that's going on in nature is sort of reflecting in my human experience as well.
Yeah, for me this year, I moved across Canada. I went from Ontario, which is kind of like a state. We call them provinces up here because we like to be different, and moved to Alberta. And Alberta is definitely much, much colder, and the snow comes a lot earlier. But luckily for me, I picked up some winter sports and hobbies.
Yes.
One of those being snowboarding, and I haven't hit up any of the West Coast mountains yet, especially around Banff and Jasper. And
that'll be awesome.
So I have a bucket list this winter coming up, and my snowboard is in a shipping container right now, and it's en route to Alberta, and it should be here by November 17th at the latest. So I'm going to make the most of my outdoor adventures this winter by
that's exciting. I'll be moving to Colorado at the start of the new year, and this will be my first time actually doing the whole winter thing.
Yeah.
And I actually will be working on a farm, so there will be no avoiding the snow. I'm going to have to be getting all up in it every single day, and I'm pretty nervous about it, but also excited for that same reason with access to winter sports. I like to ski. So that'll be really, really neat, being close to the mountains and the slopes and all of that.
Colorado's beautiful. There's so many places in the States I've yet to visit. And, oh man, like, what is it, Boulder? I heard Boulder's really
Yeah, that's where I'm moving.
Oh, you're living in the most
Boulder,
beautiful place.
Colorado. Yeah. I got to go and see the farm that I'm moving to last week. And it's incredible. The view from the property is, you can see the Flatirons, this mountain range. It's amazing.
Is it like a horse farm or like a cattle farm, or?
It's an everything farm. So they're doing like permaculture. This is their first year. They had it as a homestead in the past, and this is their first year trying to transition to a full CSA farm. So they're growing a lot of things. They built a couple of greenhouses so we can actually continue growing things through the snow. They've got a couple of goats. They've got some cattle. One of the cows is actually pregnant right now, so we should be having baby calves running around in the spring or the summer.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, they have a bunch of chickens. It's a whole farm.
That's exciting. That'll be a cool experience for sure. Colorado, and especially if you get to sneak some skiing in there along the way.
Definitely.
Couldn't ask for more than that. The internet nomad, or online, what is it? Digital nomad.
Digital nomad.
It's such an intriguing lifestyle because it's really making the most out of your life. And there's the cheesy saying, what is it, like YOLO? But there's a much better way of looking at it. And I've been reading up on some philosophy recently, and this one that hit me, well, this isn't recently, this was within like the last like couple of years, but it kind of like reflected on how I'm going to live my life. So anyway, this I think it's Friedrich Nietzsche, but basically in this like story, he says, you know, you're approached by an entity, and this entity tells you you're going to relive your life an innumerable amount of times continuously for all eternity, but you'll have no recollection of your life, and you're destined to basically relive your life over and over and over again, the same, no matter what, for all eternity. And what he poses in it is that you're faced with, you'll have one of two reactions to this. You'll either, you know, bless them or like praise them as an angel for blessing you with this like incredible, you know, circumstance, or you'll curse them as a demon for putting this like curse on you and making you have to relive this life. And depending on how you react to that blessing or curse, whether you regard it as that, kind of frames how you've been living your life. And it's like, if you think of it as a blessing, then you've been living a good life, or you've been making a life worth living for an eternity. And granted, there are things that happen to us that we have no control over that are really bad, but maybe if we change that by filling it with more good, then the bad will be bearable in retrospect, maybe. And then if you regard it as a demon, then obviously maybe you haven't been living a life worth living. And I think obviously it's not a fully formed philosophy, but it's a pretty good one to like think about. It's like, would I want to relive this life over and over again? And if the answer is no, then maybe, just maybe, like, this is what I thought to myself, maybe I'm living my life wrong. Maybe I'm not living a life worth living. Maybe I need to start doing things that I love, that I appreciate, you know, and then make it so when, you know, I happen to be laying on my deathbed, I can say that was a good go around. And then even like the sad moments and the, you know, the hurtful stuff, it was like, you know, it pales in comparison to the love and the joy that I found along the way for myself. So I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. It's like we are the creators of our own reality. And what's that quote? Life is happening for you, not to you. I think
something like
the digital nomad thing, with people just kind of taking their life by the horns and, you know, taking control of how they want to be living their everyday. I think I started to feel that when I was back in Texas doing the whole 9-to-5 job, dreading getting out of bed every day. It was so difficult. And then, you know, you do the work day just to be able to afford rent. And then at the end of the day, get home, make dinner, go to sleep, do the same thing all over again. And it's just like, why are we letting the days just slip away like this when we are the creators of our own reality? Like, it doesn't have to be like this just because society has done it like this forever. You know, we have new opportunities now with it being the age of technology that we can do anything that we want. And the only thing that's stopping us is ourselves.
If you don't control your fate will control you. That is a saying that kind of hits home to me as well. And I've been in similar positions, and recently it kind of resulted in me moving across the country this year. It's like, I kind of followed, my mother's advice before she passed away. It was kind of like, get a good job, get a job with benefits, buy a house, and that's it. Like, and then the rest will fall in place, which I did. But when you do that, and then you just kind of rinse and repeat every day, and you're not doing a job that you're passionate about or that you love.
It doesn't spark joy.
It doesn't spark joy. You're just rolling on autopilot or like whatever. And then I'm kind of just like, this only works if what you do for a living is you're passionate about. If you're not pursuing your passions, or you're not pursuing like the things you enjoy, then you're just doing something to kind of like buy laundry detergent and paper towels every week. Your life, I felt like my life wasn't very it could have been a lot better, and so I made changes, and my life for the moment has exponentially increased in enjoyment and excitement and all these different things. And it's still not perfect, but you know what the silver lining with that is? There's always room for improvement. And then as long as we're pursuing improvement and sort of like pursuing happiness and sort of having those goals to kind of like motivate us to keep going, I feel like that's like, it's a part of the journey, and the journey is like pretty enjoyable too. It's not always the destination, right? But like the destination's always kind of pretty cool, especially if it's like a really awesome lake or mountaintop or sunset, whatever it is. So, but when you drive through the mountains, that's the journey, and it's not really a destination, but that journey is awestrucking, and it's just like, holy crap, this is beautiful, and like I'm amazed by
seriously some of those drives from place to place, like when I'm driving between different states to get to another house sit, those in between parts of the journey, it's not even like, oh, my life is filled with so much joy. I feel like my life is filled with so much more of everything now. Like I feel things so much more presently and on a deeper level. Like I'll just be on those drives, and sometimes I bust out into tears crying from joy. Like, wow, I'm so grateful that I'm living this life that I'm living, and look at this magic that I'm creating. And sometimes it's just sorrow, and it's sort of a different kind of sorrow than, wow, I'm wasting my days away, working all day. It's just like I'm feeling everything a lot deeper because I'm able to be more present and less distracted by all of the shoulds. And society says you should get a job, and you should, like you said, like get something with benefits and insurance and all of these shoulds. If we act like these are rules to live by, if these are truth, then it leaves a lot of room for just being miserable and suffering. And I found that feeling deeper, all of the range of human emotions, like it doesn't mean I have to be, if I feel sadness, it doesn't mean I have to be sad. I hold space for experiencing sadness. Like, today, actually, before we started this podcast this morning, I was feeling so lonely this morning. And I just kind of hold space for that and acknowledge, here's this feeling that I'm feeling, and it passed, and now we're visiting, and like I'm not lonely anymore. But the being present with however we can create this experience for ourselves, like we're in charge, and it's so much more present, and I'm enjoying it.
Do you think more and more people are experiencing loneliness than like they ever have?
I think, and probably ironically, we're supposed to be this connected world with all of our access to technology, and you're completely on, I don't know how many 100 miles away you are from me right now, but you're in Canada, I'm in Southern California, and like we're connected, but I think it depends on the types of conversations that we're having and what we're doing with that access to connection.
I can't stand small talk. Small
Yeah.
talk kills me. Oh my God. It's like this person doesn't want to hear me talking. They don't care. And I'd hate small talk. So I'm like, I don't even want to be talking right now, but I'm still doing it. And it's like this weird, like orchestrated sort of like scripted thing
Yeah.
that nobody wants to participate in because it's not meaningful and it's not doing anything. But it's like I can't sit in silence because then it's awkward or something.
Yeah, I felt a lot of that since I've started my travels. I had mentioned before this to you that sorry if I'm a little bit out of practice, like conversing. I feel like I haven't been having that much human interaction lately, and it's just that though. It's that the shallow conversations and oh, hi, good morning, like walking into the office every day, like how's the weather? None of that has been happening, and sometimes I'll get like social anxiety sometimes now when I'm around groups.
Yeah.
Because I do just want to sit and like have these conversations about what are you doing to fill your cup and bring presence and enjoyment to your life, and what are you working on, like things like that. And yeah, stuff with like social media, it's not fulfilling. It's like we're connecting for the name in the name of being connected, but what conversations are we actually having, and what are we actually using that for?
It's not meaningful, and oftentimes it's being used for things to be meaningful, but in the negative spectrum, and it's not good. You know, I feel like these algorithm stuff rarely embrace positivity or like I don't know, maybe like spirituality, I guess, like, or just like kind of like, I don't know, like like social media, it's connected, but it's also like kind of soulless in a way too, because it's superficial, you know?
Right. I find that on days when I'm feeling lonely during my travels and I start to seek connection, whenever I get on social media, like, oh, here's connection, here's community, I'm usually left afterwards feeling worse than I did before. And I know a lot of that has to do with like I've unfollowed some accounts and like I followed some better ones that feel a bit better, but when we're just there was this Huberman lab, Dr. Huberman, I think his name is, had this podcast and talked about how gratification, this instant gratification without having to apply any effort, like, I want a dump of dopamine in my brain. So we just pop on our Instagram or whatever social media we use, and we get these little baby bursts of dopamine. We're not actually having to work and do things to get that. Like, I'm going to peel myself off the couch and go for a walk. There's none of that actual effort behind it that's having to happen. So it doesn't feel like it serves very much.
So it's like not real. It's almost like instead of taking a pill that increases your dopamine, it's like you're taking a digital interface that'll like kind of give you like a pill, because it's like, okay, I haven't checked my Instagram or Facebook, whatever, in a little while. Oh, here's 17 likes. And then once you get that dopamine surge,
I feel like now what?
That's it, right? And then it's gone, and it's fleeting, it's quick, and it's sort of just like it's basically like a quick high. It's like a little dopamine surge. That's interesting. So I guess there's like different levels of like dopamine. Like that's why hiking, I think, is very good, because it takes a long time to like hike, to get up a mountain, and you're kind of progressing towards that gratification of like achievement, physical like endurance, and you're accomplishing something. And it's, I don't know, it's like,
the whole podcast was about successful people, and I guess he was saying a lot of times, like, that's why people burn out, when we're addicted to that end goal of, you know, I'm going to create a business, and then you create the business, and then you've got it, and then what? Like, it's over. But when we can kind of rewire our brains to almost being addicted to that pursuit, like addicted to the journey rather than the destination.
Yeah, it's the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly.
As opposed to like the obtaining of happiness, because you could get everything you ever wanted, but then what do? You sit back on the throne
Right.
and like raise
Or
your
it's
glass.
not as good as we expected. Like we get to the top of the mountain and maybe it starts raining, so we don't get to see that view that we thought was just going to be incredible.
Yeah. What's the next journey? What's the next thing?
Right.
Because you can't just stand still. You have to be motivated. You have to be doing things. I think that's a bit of our nature. Wow. That's I don't know. That's definitely how I've been living my life. I mean, I've had like a ton of adventures I went through. Let's see, this summer I did the Alberta foothills, which has like a bunch of these like feral horses, which are basically,
Wow.
yeah, they used to be like domesticated, but they've been wild for, I guess, like let into the wild. Now they're kind of just like, so when you drive through there, you'll see just like these herds of horses, these little small herds, just kind of beautiful animals. And so those were awesome to like take videos of and stuff like that. I went up through Jasper a handful of times. I'm trying to find caribou. I can't find any caribou. I have like this like plan of making like a Christmas card with like caribou pictures on them, but I can't get a picture.
You can't find any caribou.
Nah.
Aw.
Yeah, lots of elk, lots of mule deer, lots of white-tailed deer,
I've been seeing a lot of elk
Moose.
too.
but no caribou. Those good old crescent horned little deers, you know.
Huh. I don't think I've ever seen a caribou either.
Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of like, I don't know. They're falling to like predation on a lot of different reasons through like tourism and I don't know, avalanches and just predation from other animals. They're having a rough go of it all, to be honest. So I don't know. They're harder and harder to find. You got to go further and further north. There's larger herds up there, but I don't know. I can't really go miles and miles away sometimes. I don't know. Maybe next weekend. I got a long weekend, but the weather's not the greatest right now. So I think it might be snowboard season and podcast season. That's another thing.
There
When
you
the weather
go.
gets cold, it's just to start podcasting again. My podcast has actually been on hiatus for months now, which has been disappointing. I think that probably threw a wrench in the whole progression path. But I'm glad. I don't know if you know this. You're basically the first episode of like, I guess, the comeback of
This new series.
yeah, and it's weird because I think it ended off on like a bench stone mark. It was like episode 25 or 26, and it was supposed to go to like episode 50, and then I want to go even further beyond. But I feel like every like benchmark is like 25 was a benchmark. I think 10 was a benchmark as well, and then 50 will be a benchmark, and then 100 probably or 75. But I felt like this has been a pretty good one so far. You're very like for someone that's been lonely and isolated, and not sure how her conversations will be going and stuff like that. You are definitely way more enjoyable to talk to than some other people I've spoken to, because a lot of people they get on here
Thank you.
and they're rigid. They're kind of like robotic. They're kind of nervous. But you seem very fluid. You seem very like open.
I honestly am just so excited to be talking to you today. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no worries. Like, thank you, because hopefully, this inspires a few other people that, come on the podcast and have some good discussions and stuff like that. I've had some really good ones too, some really knowledgeable people. But yeah, I don't know if
I think moral of the story: do the thing.
Yeah.
And if you're unhappy with the routine and life and miserable, then do something else. It's really all just, I say this one a lot, it's all just an experiment. And life in general, it's just an experiment. And when we try something like, alcohol, for example, abusing alcohol, it could be sort of this experiment. We recognize what it does to us, how it makes us feel, and then maybe, okay, let's try next time I go out to a party, maybe I drink like a little bit less, or maybe I don't have any drinks at all, and like see how that feels. And then noting how that made you feel, like how the next day that made you feel, and sort of just living like everything is an experiment. Try things. If they don't work out, try something else. And then maybe we forget and we go back to the original experiment and then remember again, oh wait, that one sucked, and then try something else again.
Here's something that this actually reminds me of. I've been wondering, for a while, and this is something I've been recently struggling with, is like most of my life I've been focusing on sort of freeing myself of vice and becoming a more someone in line with like the positive spectrum of existence, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, as I studied philosophy or self-read up on philosophy, this weird notion has kind of like slipped into my brain. It's almost been like a parasite, but it's really something I like contemplate about. Is in order to be a truly complete person, you have to come to terms or like a balance with the negative aspects of your person or your like your personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, do you make peace with your demons and like accept it for what it is to be whole, or do you try to like eliminate them? So this is something I've been thinking about, is like, you know, do you constantly ascribe to be like a god, or do you just
I feel like there's got to be a little bit of both, like acknowledging where you are right now and, you know, recognizing that there is no perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but honoring what is right now, but also recognizing that, you know, you can always be better and we can always be growing, and like the pursuit of happiness thing, we can always be seeking better and better versions of ourselves. Not that this one isn't good enough, but
yeah,
it's all about change and like trial and error, I think.
I think of like the yin and the yang, and it's like kind of like being a perfectly balanced person. It's like one way to look at it, but then there's also like the other way of looking at it, where it's like, no, I want to like I guess like what's like just being like freeing yourself of all vices, sort of like a Buddhist way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to explain because I think they do have the yin and yang in that as well, or like recognizing a little bit of evil and all good, and a little bit of good and all evil, sort of thing. I don't know. This is part of my journey, is to figure out like the type of person I'm supposed to be, or how I should be engaging with things. Like, should I be drinking, you know, as much as I do, which isn't very much, or, you know, in Canada we have recreational marijuana. You know, is that something that, you know, should be done? Is that, you know,
I feel like the thing with stuff like this, and it's sort of in the lens of everything is an experiment, and like the shoulds, living by the shoulds.
Yeah.
Really, with any substance, like whether it be alcohol or drugs or, you know, processed foods, or the music that we're listening to, the relationships that we're having, the way that we're treating our bodies, like with anything we absorb from our environment. Like, bad and wrong is relative. So, you know, I mean,
yeah, I guess so.
The Catholics like drink wine in their worship, and it's not alcohol is bad. It's the way, you know, can we integrate integrity into what we're doing, and rather than just using substances to try to mask something or to change ourselves or to enjoy a certain event more.
Mm-hmm. So basically moderation, like
kind of moderation, but also, you know, how would this event go to that I would usually down like 6 White Claws for? How would this concert feel if I stayed extra hydrated and rested halfway through, so I could sustainably dance all night, and the next day I'll feel great and I'll sleep good that night? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's not a bad or a wrong.
You're right.
I feel like there's not a bad or a wrong. It's just kind of relative to the person and the setting, and also phases and seasons of our lives. Like, maybe one chapter, certain things you found work for you don't really work for you in the present chapter.
Yeah. Oh man, life is, so that's the complexity of life. Like, it's just there's no answer, there's no rule book, there's no guidebook. It's kind of like,
right,
here's a flimsy sort of, you know, way of living, but I mean, it might not even work for you, so I don't know what to tell you.
Right?
It's like, yeah, just kind of take it at face value and figure it out. I guess that's part of it, is just learning along the way. Yeah, right. Dang, life is complicated, but I mean, let's see. To quote, let's see, a line from my favorite anime, going back to the Full Metal Alchemist, when you said nothing in life is perfect. There's a line in there that says, nothing in life is perfect, not even the earth. The earth sits on a tilted axis.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't for that imperfection, the earth wouldn't be as beautiful as it is right now.
Yeah.
And that, so it's sort of like that imperfection is
Yeah.
responsible for all of the beauty that we have.
In a way, it's like that imperfection, and this is sort of the same thing, my perspective on failure. It's like, I messed up. I did this bad thing that I shouldn't have done. But really, like, the imperfections, the failures, the quote unquote bad things, it's all just weaving together and creating this very perfect experience that is life. It's everything's going to rebalance itself, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like we're always seeking that rebalancing of things, but if sometimes I feel like if we just let go and allow things to unravel as they naturally do, everything will rebalance itself eventually, and then it'll unbalance again, and then it'll rebalance, and it just is a constant kind of back and forth.
Yeah, I like it when things are perfectly imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the flaws that make us unique, that give us charm, that give us character. I don't know. I feel like too many people are looking for perfection, but I think maybe we should start looking for imperfection to find
Exactly.
like the perfectly imperfect. Yeah, I don't know. How was sorry, just to kind of change the direction of the conversation. I don't know how much time you have for today, but we're at an hour right now.
I don't have any time limits. I'm basically retired.
So, how was your experience skydiving?
Oh, skydiving. So that one I actually had sprained my ankle bouldering up in the Seattle area, and I'm all alone in these places. Like, Washington is hundreds of, I want to say it's over 1,000 miles away from my family in South Texas, and even my closest friends in Colorado, probably like 800, 1,000 miles away. So I sprained my ankle, and that was kind of a heavy week. I remember whenever the employee that worked at the climbing gym I was at had walked over to me and was like, "Oh, are you okay? Do you have anyone that we can call?" I looked up at him and was like, "I have nobody."
Oh no, I've ran into that a lot of times before.
Yeah.
I was always like, they're like, okay, you need to have someone come pick you up or whatever at the hospital.
It's like, I literally have nobody.
The world is
So
not designed for us.
I kind of felt bad for myself for a couple days and was hobbling around like, well, you know, it's fall, it's about to be snowy, and I can't go on any crazy hikes anymore. So that also, maybe that was another thing that contributed to my adventures sort of feeling like they've slowed down a bit. But I did a lot of feeling bad for myself that week, and woke up one day and was like, this sucks, this part of the experiment, no thanks, I'm going to try something else. And thought, you know, what is something I always have wanted to do? It's another bucket list item that I don't necessarily need a functionable left ankle for. And so I looked up skydiving stuff in the area. It was something that I've had friends that I've wanted to do it with, but I don't really like having to wait around for people. Like if I want to do something, then I'm going to do it.
Yes, exactly.
So I
know
booked
that
the skydiving thing and just went all by myself. And it was a tandem skydive, of course. So I was attached to a professional that had done it hundreds of times. He was super nice. And we put on these jumpsuits and boarded this plane, this tiny little, it had, one of those doors that you pull up, and it's totally open to the elements. And we got in last, so I quickly realized, wait a minute, does that mean we're jumping out of this plane first? And I think there was a smile on my face from the moment that I watched the little training video when I was there until like an hour or two after I got back to the house I was staying in. So it wasn't really, I don't think I was nervous. I was pretty excited, but he was taking some videos and stuff, and looking back in the videos, I was clearly, something was going on. I was like nervous, excited. I have no idea. But we got up in this plane, and the guy that I was attached to said, okay, help me open the door. And we opened the door of this tiny little plane, and the wind is blowing really strong, kind of like you see in the movies.
Yeah.
And we scooched up to the edge. Our feet are dangling out of the sky, over 10,000 feet in the air. And I almost kind of like blacked out in a way. Like I don't remember getting from sitting on the edge of this plane to being in the air. It was like one moment we were sitting there. I was like, are we going to go? Are we going to go? And then we're just in the air falling.
Just survival mode kicks in.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy. The thing with skydiving, like that first bit of free fall, I want to say it was like a full minute or so of just falling before he pulled the parachute. It really didn't even feel like we were falling. Like that roller coaster sensation didn't even happen until he pulled the parachute. So we were just sort of there, like flying almost.
That's kind of cool, because I guess the body hasn't evolved to really experience that kind of feeling, so it doesn't really know how to make us feel in that circumstance. So it's like,
I have no idea. There was my tummy is dropping. It was just like, we're flying. And then he pulled the parachute, and all of a sudden, like, then that tummy drop sensation kind of kicks in. But it was fun. Once the parachute was going, then we got to kind of steer around, and I got a little bit nauseous when I got back down to Earth, which apparently is normal. But I remember I felt high. I don't think like that I have... It was like just so much, every single bit of happy hormones that I had in my brain were released all at once. It was crazy. And I felt, when I got back to my car, I called my mom and re-explained this story to her, and it still felt like I wasn't even, didn't even have like both my feet steady on the ground. I was just like, woo, I'm floating, I'm flying around. Like,
this is how adrenaline junkies start.
Adrenaline. Yeah, that must have been a lot of adrenaline.
Yeah, I love it. I mean,
like, how will anything ever excite me again to that extent after having
that might be peak adrenaline, unless you start doing like parasailing or something. You start jumping off mountains with like a glider.
Yeah, base jumping.
Yeah, I did I bridge jumped a couple times, 75-foot bridges into rivers, and or 100-foot bridges into like rivers, and that was pretty nerve-wracking, but I mean, every time I did it, I always kind of like felt really, really good after. And I usually did it when like something bad happened in my life. I'd be like, all right, this happened to me, so now whatever, if it's a breakup or you lost someone close to you, it's like, I'm going to kind of go jump off this bridge again that I like to jump off. In a safe
manner.
It's safe. It's relatively safe. Like tons of people jump there and it's kind of proven, but I guess it's not like regulated or anything technically, so I guess that there is some sort
that's what they say about skydiving. It's pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bridge jumping's safe. I mean, I've seen countless people do it. I've seen people do like backflips and stuff off of it, so I'm like, well, if they can do it, like no one's died yet doing these bridges. Like, I mean, if you've never done a bridge before and you haven't seen other people do it, you should question whether the water's deep enough or whatever, right? But if it's proven, okay, whatever, it's safe enough for me, I guess. anyway, I would do like these plunges, and I don't know, in a way I felt like, it's kind of like leaving the old me behind, and sort of like, new me comes out, kind of like, I do, that's
I
kind
love
of,
that.
yeah, that's sort of like, it's sort of like killing my old self in a way, or like the pain, or whatever I'm carrying, and it's sort of like, okay,
Yeah.
leave it all there in the river, and then carry on. I don't know. And I don't know. That just made me think of like a thing with salmon. I don't know if you're familiar with like the fish, salmon.
Oh,
but,
they
like,
swim up the river?
yeah, they swim up the river, and there's like countless of them dying along the way, whether it's like
Oh, wow.
exhaustion or like predation. So like in a way, they're kind of like swimming through like the spirits of like their kin, or like ancestors, or like relatives and stuff, which is kind of like
Oh, wow.
like an interesting sort of like, I don't know.
I recently heard a thing about salmon. Sort of the analogy that they used was life and challenges are kind of rushing at them, and they're just taking it head on, like swimming against the river like that.
100%. They're kind of badass, and I always disregarded them, but now I have like a whole new respect for them.
Seriously, salmon.
Yeah, they're they're just a badass fish. Like, I don't know. It's like the bald eagle, like, like.
Yeah, that's a badass bird.
It's a badass bird. There's that bigger like eagles out there and stuff like that, but they're not really as high regarded. But like, it's like the salmon. It's just sort of thought of as like something you eat. It's not really ever thought of being like a badass. But I mean, like people always talk about like sturgeon because they're like huge and dragon-like, but like, salmon, man. Give the salmon give it its recognition, its props, and it's like, I don't know, it overcomes like adversity and like challenge.
Seriously.
And I don't know, it's something to kind of like,
That's not an easy way to swim against the current like that.
yeah, especially when there's like bears like just standing in the water,
Right?
waiting for you, like swiping.
Ugh.
And, I don't know, what could I want to share with you, a good place to visit if you ever come back up to Canada. I don't know, there's like
Please.
Obviously Banff, you kind of, I don't know how much of it you saw. It's a pretty big park, but the town itself is pretty interesting. I
explored the town a little bit, but
Yeah.
usually when I am adventuring like that, a lot of people and crowds
It
they
takes away
irk
the
me.
magic.
Yeah, I try not to.
It makes it dirtier somehow.
Definitely.
It's
I'm
like-
not really there to like socialize and see cities and stuff.
So there's like the three major like lakes people kind of get that are known for: Moraine, Lake Louise, and then Peyto. And Peyto's a little further north, kind of towards Jasper, and they're all really pretty easily accessible. And
So I didn't see it's Moraine.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see that one because you have to get some sort of bus ticket.
No, you can drive up, but it's that parking lot's like small, and it's usually packed.
Right.
So they close it
that was the
off
thing.
before you drive up the mountain pass. So you either got to go super early or super late.
Yeah.
And
I missed my window for that, but I did make one of the last parking spots to get to see Lake Louise.
nice.
Yeah,
Nice
that one
solid
was
grab.
awesome.
I did the Lake Louise hike recently, where I went up to like the beehive and stuff, and just kept climbing up and up. I climbed.
That was hard.
I climbed it later in the evening to get parking, and I watched the sunset from the top of the mountain.
Oh wow.
But then it was like pitch black as I was going down, and that is the most terrifying experience I think I've had in recent memory. And I was kind of like
that beehive, that was pretty steep.
Yeah, and then I'm sort of like texting people and being like, "This is what I'm doing. Like, if I go missing, it was a bear." Like, but like, there's horse trails up that trail too, so there's lots of like horse like manure and stuff. And the bears are more interested in that like than anything else. And I don't know. So I guess you're kind of okay because they have their food options available to them that they're kind of, I guess, prone to eating, because I guess the horses go up there quite often. And
Yeah, I remember seeing signs like, we have families of bear that live here.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was going down there like pitch black. I had like my phone blasting some podcast as loud as it could, so it sounded like people. I had the light
good
on my
idea.
phone going, and I was just kind of doing like, I didn't want to jog, but I wanted to get out there as fast as possible. But I felt like if I ran, then I'd come across like prey. So then I had to like walk like steadfast kind of throughout the night, and it was just, I don't know, it was terrible. It really gave me a frame of understanding of where I'm at in my mind. It's like I know I don't want to die. I know I have a high survival instinct and like motivation, and I don't know. It was kind of thrilling. It gave me adrenaline, and I was like, oh no, this is not a bad. This is a bad correlation of things to do. It's risk meets like adventure. Like it's not a good.
I also
thing.
saw some avalanches happen.
Did you?
And this was in, what, this would have been in July, I think. Yeah, there were some like snowy mountains that had big chunks break off that we saw.
You saw it?
Yeah, I saw a few happen. It was down at the end by some tea house.
Oh, dang. Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could hear it, and we didn't really know what the sound was at first.
It's terrifying.
But it kept happening, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like lightning or something, like thunder, or like this weird like thunder. I was in Emerald Lake, and it's in BC. Maybe, I think that's Yoho. Sorry, yeah, Dog Lake was Kootenay. I'm pretty sure Emerald Lake that's another beautiful lake to go see if you ever come back. But
Okay.
Emerald Lake, I was out there kayaking earlier this spring, canoeing, and we were out in the middle of the lake, and we just hear like this weird like thunder sound. It was just like, and so we're looking off in the distance, and we're like, it's coming from that direction, and then you just sort of see like the like snow smoke, you know how like the loose snow kind of toss up in the air. We couldn't see the actual avalanche because it was on the other side of the mountains and stuff like that, but we're like, I'm like, oh my god, there's an avalanche happening. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because that's like the I guess like the glacial part of the mountains where there's like lots, but it's also like turning into spring. So if it's getting a slightly bit warmer, things are going to start slipping. And so I don't know. It was kind of terrifying, but also like awing as well, because I guess I was safe like where I was, but it was just like the force of nature. And it's
I know, and you feel so involved almost getting to witness that.
Yeah, it's there's lots of things that I witnessed like along the way, whether it be like an encounter with an animal, whether it be beautiful like sunbeams coming through the clouds, a sunset, or like an avalanche or something like that they're fleeting moments, and I don't necessarily have cameras with me, or maybe I do, but I decide this moment's going to be too short and fleeting that I can't bother wasting it with taking videos of it. So these ones are just for me, and I like regard those moments as just being like special moments that were only meant for me, or I guess whoever else is kind of bearing witness that by chance, and it's kind of just like, I don't know. I think of them as being special, but I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe,
I've been seeing a lot of shooting stars lately. And those have been another thing. Like, you can't really capture it, but they're so special when they happen. Yeah. The
night sky, you need a lot of equipment to capture it, and even then, like, why bother? Like, I don't know. There's the when you get out into like the mountains and there's no light pollution, and you can see the vastness of it, and it just gets brighter and brighter and brighter. It's amazing. And then when the Northern Lights just happen to be there that weekend or whatever.
Ooh, I haven't seen that.
Oh,
that's
my
awesome.
God. They're beautiful. The further north you go, the more colors you get. Mostly in the Banff area, you're just going to get the green, but nonetheless, it's still really cool. And I don't know, if you ever get a chance to go to like Alaska or something like that, maybe jump on that.
Oh, I totally will.
And it's, I don't know, I've always said this to like a lot of my friends that I've had on the podcast and stuff. It's like, if you could choose to have your life surrounded by beauty of mountains, the stars, the northern lights, this charismatic megafauna, incredible ancient trees, and this and that, like the list goes on, these beautiful like emerald blue colored lakes, turquoise lakes. Like,
that's Alaska.
No, I don't know if Alaska's like that, but they have mountains and stuff, and there's probably areas that are beautiful. But it's like, why not live there? So for me, that was Alberta, because it's a drive away. It's not super close, but it's, you know, you get enough of it. Whereas, you know, you live on the East Coast, you don't really get a lot of that. So it's, I don't know, for me, beauty was a big motivator as well. It's just the beauty of the natural world. And I don't know, what do you think is the most place you recommend in the States in terms of natural beauty to go visit, even if it is kind of like a paved road like in Yellowstone or something like that? Is there something?
So Yellowstone was really cool, and I actually just accidentally drove through it. I didn't realize that that was on my route. Leaving, I was coming from the Grand Tetons and going up to North Idaho, and all of a sudden it was like, "Welcome to Yellowstone National Park." So I just like pulled off and like saw Old Faithful, and there were these rainbow pools. Those were really neat, but I don't know that in terms of just natural beauty and those magical moments and stuff, I felt a lot of that in the States at Grand Tetons was a really cool trip because I did paddleboarding, I rode my bike, I did some hiking, I got to see the stars, like take cool pictures there. It was like probably only 2 days that I was there, and it was every moment was just adventure and excitement. And it's a lot less heavily trafficked than where I was in Yellowstone. So you can kind of find those little pockets of stillness and silence and, wake up early and do a little hike that nobody else is on. That one was a really neat place. And then also, I recently, driving down the West Coast, got to stop in Redwoods National Forest in Northern California. And the redwoods are the tallest trees in the world. These things, I couldn't even wrap my mind around how big these things were. It was like looking up at a skyscraper. They were so tall. And it really it sort of gave me some perspective about, my brain did the whole thing with like, oh, time and humans are just so insignificant and small, and I feel like a little bug, a little ant, just like walking next to the trunk of this gigantic tree and thinking about, how many decades and centuries this tree has seen and what all it has experienced and the storms that it's weathered and lived through. That place is amazing. And when I got there, it was pouring down rain. So I got to sleep like next to this creek the rain was dripping down on it, and you could hear the rain on the ground around me. And I think I slept like 10 hours in this forest. It was so peaceful. It just felt like, the trees are like watching over me and protecting me. That was a really, really neat place.
That's amazing. I was just in British Columbia a couple weekends ago, and this place is called the Ancient Forest. It's just northwest of a small town known as McBride. And same thing, like, and here's the thing with Canada. There's very few places, like British Columbia has some places where they have those ancient types of trees. Obviously not as big as the ones in the States, or as ancient. But most of Canada was throughout history crushed by glaciers constantly, like every winter, sort of mowing everything down. So it never gave things really the opportunity to grow. So a lot of our trees aren't, we don't have like those ancient forests. So the places we do have, they somehow, through the course of time, were just nestled into the right spot where they avoided destruction and stuff like that, which makes them pretty magical in a way, like that they've kind of overcome the odds of time. Yeah. Just through sheer luck, I guess. But the ancient forest, like how incredible! What types of animals have rubbed their velvet of their horns on them to like rub it off? Are those animals like even exist anymore? Or did they perish away in like the Pleistocene era or whatever? Like,
right?
And now you're another animal that's enjoying them and taking shelter under them, and it's like these things just have kind of like withstood the test of time. There's definitely something humbling about them and potentially spiritual when you go there to be like meaningful. I highly recommend going to any of those ancient forests and tree places, like you said. Like,
right, the old amazing growth. They have some of that. I want to say Montana. I visited another old growth forest, and these trees are so big. Like you walk around the thing, and to put the term tree hugger into perspective. Like, you spread your arms as wide as they can go, and you're just like kind of stuck to the side of this tree. It's so big. And like all of the old moss and stuff that started to cover the sides, those things are old.
Yeah, trees. I love trees, and they've been around for quite a while. And you think they would sort of had developed or evolved ways to sort of better defend themselves, but I've gone down the tree rabbit hole recently for like some of these like research papers on them. So apparently there's studies where if you play the sound of like caterpillars eating trees or like leaves on trees, the trees in the surrounding area will change their chemical composition to be less tasty to them.
Whoa.
So there is like to some degree, trees can hear or maybe sense vibration.
Well, and also they
like
communicate. I've heard they communicate with each other like through their root systems.
Yeah, releasing like these like chemical compounds and stuff that kind of signal, I'm being eaten right now. You guys need to prepare for this or whatever.
Run away.
Yeah. And there's some studies to show like the sharing of nutrients where one has excess and other things may need them. There's one research paper, I think it was done in Japan. I'm not sure about how reliable it is, but they say that trees release kind of like these things called like volatile compounds. And they believe one of these volatile compounds is actually really good for like inflammation in humans. So when you're in like a tree, like heavy area, like going on a hike, for example, you're sort of breathing in these things, and it's helping with inflammation and that sort of stuff potentially. I don't. The research paper I think it's debated a bit, but it's still like an interesting idea that there might be things we're not completely aware of.
Oh, totally. It's probably hard to test stuff like that in nature. Like, there's so many different confounding variables that you can't control.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't doubt it. I mean, we all know the benefits of having a bad day. Step outside, like sit in the sun for a second, and the wonders that it can do for our mental health.
Yeah, so I don't know. For me, it's always like the physical fitness aspect of it, all these kind of like unknown health benefits that you don't really know what's going on around you. Maybe just being exposed to like different pollens and spores from fungus and stuff like that. Maybe that's somehow
helping your immunity
or building something in you, or who knows? I don't know. But it's like, I don't know. I've never really felt like I had a negative experience besides with insects. Those things sometimes are horrible, but ticks can be a problem. So, wear your long leg pants and high boots and kind of.
Yeah, we get those giant cockroaches down where I'm from. Like 4-inch long cockroaches that fly.
What?
They're what nightmares are made of.
4-inch. Okay.
They're huge.
And they fly. Okay, that's a giant, like that's like a bird.
That's scary.
It's a small bird.
It is scary.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, they don't bite or sting or really do anything bad or to hurt you. They're just horrifying.
I think I would have an issue crushing one. Because
it's they're so fast and they fly at you.
I feel like if you crushed a cockroach that big, that's like the same as like stepping on like a finch, like a little bird,
baby squirrel,
or like a baby squirrel, or like it's like we're getting into this weird territory of like, killing bugs is sometimes okay, but now when they're bigger, it's like it's not a bug anymore. It's like
it's
an animal.
a whole individual.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I have some child trauma with those bugs.
I stepped on a couple of bumblebees when I was a kid.
Oh.
I once grabbed a bee in the schoolyard when I was in like grade 3 to get out of school.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'll grab a bee at recess, get stung, and go home. I thought it was like the most brilliant idea until my
joke's on you.
Yeah, Ginger. I don't know. You got any other stories to share? You think, or I reckon we wind this down.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure I have so many, but
yeah, I noticed as you like nonchalantly talk, you're like, "Oh, I was just bouldering," and wherever. And I'm like, that's a story in on its own. I'm like, it's funny. Like every day is basically a journey and adventure for you that people would probably be like, what the heck? She does that. She does this and this and
So
that.
I think one thing that I taught myself pretty early on was, yes, every day is an adventure, and every day has the opportunity to be super exciting when I'm living this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on kind of this fast track to burnout, kind of living like that early on in this adventure. Like, it's okay to take rest days. And even when I am in, Montana or somewhere extremely beautiful, if I am tired and I want to take the day to sit inside and binge watch garbage reality TV, I have learned to let myself do that. Because it's not super sustainable to think that every day I need to be climbing mountains and, jumping out of planes. Like, that's not really reality.
Yeah.
It's more of like, I would say every week I have a couple pretty notable adventures that I go on, but
That's a good pace. That's what I try to keep it at too. But as the winter encroaches, the adventures become less and less available.
Hey, until your snowboard comes in, we'll have some of those adventures.
Yeah, it's a new journey. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. That'll be awesome. But yeah, I definitely admire your decisions and like how you're living your life and being able to go place to place and sort of like experiencing all these different things and like thrill seeking, adventure seeking, travel. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe that is the right way. I don't know if people say that's the wrong way. I think it's just different strokes for different folks, and
it's like reversed retirement. I've heard some people compare it to.
Well, here's the thing with retirement. Like
doing the travels now.
Here's the thing with retirement. Yeah, I don't know if I said this on the when I met you at the hike, but it's like people work tirelessly until they're about 50 or 60 years old. And then they look forward to retirement. But by the time you get there, your bones and muscles and ligaments aren't the same.
Oh, totally. And you can't even do the things that you've been wanting to do.
Yeah, and you might not even be fortunate enough to live that long. You might have diseases. You might have like a bum knee. You might have all these different
things. And also
things.
At that point, it's like, it's kind of cool being in my early 20s and really, I don't have any obligations outside of myself. Like, I have family in Texas and I have a partner that lives in Colorado, but I mean, I'm not a mom. I don't have kids. I don't have, an office I need to go to every day. My obligations are probably as minimal as they will ever be again in my life. Mm-hmm. So
take advantage of it.
Yeah, I have way less excuses right now than I will have, 10 years from now. So might as well do the thing.
Yeah, you might as well do the thing if it's the thing to do, because you might not get another opportunity.
Exactly.
I don't know. I say take advantage of the cards you're dealt. If you're given lemons, make lemonade. And if you're given apples, make an apple pie. If you're given whatever, you just got to roll with it. Because sometimes you don't choose what life throws at you, but you can kind of choose how you react to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so maybe it's not what you wanted, but maybe it's what you needed. Who knows?
Totally. Yeah, I think being this whole solo adventure thing, I think in my mind when I started it, I was like, I'm going to meet all these people from all over. And I have done a lot of that. I've sort of networked like around the country at this point, but it's been little sprinkles of it here and there. And I've sort of come to realize that I knew I was a social butterfly before this started. And that sense of community that you can sort of dive into on a deeper level when you stay in a place longer than, a few weeks at a time. It's been missing for me. And that's sort of been one of the trial and error things I found from doing things this way all alone is like, I miss that community connection, which is why I'm getting super excited for moving to this farm that I'm going to be on in the new year. 'Cause that's a whole intentional community they have going on there, and there'll be familiar faces and people that I see every day and every week, and it'll be a lot more of that. Still sort of, I think, with the same nomadic lifestyle of, being a minimalist and really living a lifestyle that I can shift and I can pivot and I can move and transition and, lean different ways depending on how that unravels. But it'll be nice just to kind of, they say you can't grow branches without growing roots, and this past year I feel like I have been exclusively branching out and growing so many branches all over, and it's definitely time for me to root down a bit, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so it's almost like the real treasure was the friends you made along the way.
Yeah. Totally.
Like an after school special.
Oh.
Basically. No, but it's true. The relationships are important. People are important sometimes, and it's just like, yeah, it's part of the journey. Anyway, it's been a blast talking to you. It's been insightful. It's been inspiring, and maybe we can do this again at some point and recap some of your adventures.
Yeah. We'll have to touch base, and I'll give you some insight to the farming lifestyle next time. We'll check in and see how that's going.
Yeah, you're going to be the leader of the farm. You're going to be the new, like, I am running a farm now. Everybody come join. Do you have anything that people can follow you on, social media-wise and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm Ginger on Her Journey on Instagram, and I try to sporadically like keep up with the posts and stuff, especially while I'm traveling. But I tried to do the whole reel thing for a while, and that just,
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
For a little payoff.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot to be famous, and I wasn't willing to put forth that effort, so my Instagram fame is on hold.
I think you'll steadily climb, I think, as you meet more and more people and similar interests and stuff like that. I'm trying to take all my acquaintances and friends and all the people I meet along the way kind of like with me. If I ever reach some sort of like level of notoriety, I'm bringing them all with me, baby. They're all coming with me. Yeah, I've spreaded the wealth.
All right, I'm moving to Canada.
No, we need people everywhere. We need you in the States. We need people.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. We're gonna. It's like the big, the nature's epion, like tree of life of just like people. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, connections. I always tell people that, I'm like, don't worry. If I make it, we're all gonna make it. We're in this, in for a penny, in for a pound. We're gonna do it. We're gonna find a way.
Oh, I love that.
Just through like the interconnectedness. It might take like a decade or so, and we'll be old and crummy by then. But whatever. At least it happens. So tale to tell. Someone's got to replace the people that are famous now at some point. There has to be the next generation of like.
People are gonna get bored of the current celebrities.
They're gonna age out. The podcasters and stuff like that. They're gonna age out. Hopefully, if I do the consistent game, the proverbial tortoise approach to the tortoise and hare race, I'll get there.
There you go.
Yeah. But
thank you so much for having me. This has been great. This really
I'm glad
highlight of my day, highlight of my week.
Nice. I'm glad it took away from the loneliness this morning, and
I appreciate it.
Hopefully I dropped some knowledge bombs and some thoughts and some food for thought on you.
No, totally. I'm leaving here feeling really inspired for whatever's next, whatever happens.
Yeah, I hope when people listen to this, they get motivated to kind of get out and adventure. I hope they, decide what works better for them and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I hope there's some people that listen to this that are like, do you know what? I am miserable in my job and the way that I'm doing things, and they feel the encouragement to just drop it all and completely switch things, because you can do that at any second, and I believe in you. You've got it.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. All right, I'm going to shut her down here now.